Have you ever wondered what it would be like if Einstein, Steve Jobs, and your child's brain had a party? Welcome to the Neuroquirky Nexus, where we celebrate the extraordinary minds of our neurodiverse children. Welcome to you amazing parents and caregivers to this podcast. Here we are going to navigate the colorful world of neurodiversity, and we're going to explore holistic, out-of-the-box solutions for children and teens with ADHD, stress, anxiety, and other neuroquirks. Each week we'll dive into practical, brain-based techniques and quirky strategies to help your child thrive. I'm Laurie Bloyer, a former veteran teacher turned holistic neurogrowth, learning, and life success coach. As a parent of a neurodiverse child myself, I've spent the last 20 years researching, experimenting, and developing unconventional approaches to support these unique minds. I myself have ADHD diagnosed later in life, and thank goodness, now I understand some of my neuroquirks, and I am going to give you, from my years of teaching in the classroom, my son and myself, several tips, tricks, strategies to help you and your child thrive and create peace at home and joy in your life. So, are you ready? Let's get quirky. Hi, and welcome back to episode 4. Thank you so much. Today we're going to be talking about the freebie that I'm offering this month, which I've gotten a lot of questions from parents about their defiant child. And what does that mean? Or how can they work with their child that's just being absolutely defiant? So I've written a guide, the 10 essential guidelines for parents of defiant children with ADHD. That's the title of the guide, and I hope you guys can get it. It is linked in the show notes. But I wanted to go over it in more detail, as I wanted to make it a quick guide that you can maybe hang on your fridge or share with people that you care about and that care about you. But also, I wanted to talk about it in more detail in this podcast. So let's get quirky. So could you picture for a moment, well, this probably isn't going to be too hard, but just go here with me for a little bit. Your child is throwing a tantrum because you've asked them to do a simple chore. You feel exhausted, defeated, and maybe even embarrassed by the scene. How many of you have posted that in Facebook that I've seen? Yes, in our groups. Parenting a child with ADHD can feel like running a marathon every single day, with weights on your feet and dragging a hippopotamus, right? It can be a lot. And especially when defiance is involved, it can feel like so much more of a weight, of a burden. So, welcome back to the Neuroquirky Nexus. In today's episode, Parenting Defiant Kids with ADHD. I'm, of course, Laurie Bloyer, your host, and we're going to be diving into 10 practical rules or guidelines, I'd like to call them, to help reduce defiance with your kids and foster a more peaceful home environment. That's what we all really want as our big goal, I believe, a peaceful home environment. Whether you're new to this journey or looking to refine your parenting toolkit, I'm really hoping that these strategies will empower you with techniques to make each day just a little easier. Isn't that also what we want? Peace and ease. So defiance is really common in kids with ADHD, and many times it's a byproduct of the way their brains work. These 10 rules or guidelines will help you see defiant behavior in a new light and give you tools to navigate those difficult moments with empathy and calm. And I'm going to guess, based on the last 2 episodes I did, that we're not going to get to all 10 today. Probably the top 5, and part 2 will be the next 5. So stay tuned. Of course, you can always download the guide for all 10. All right, let's build on those, yeah? So positive reinforcement, building it into everyday parenting. Number one was emphasize positivity. I really want you to build that into your everyday. Emphasize positivity. How many times has your child heard no, 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 can't, whether at home or at school or out in public? How many times have they heard no, no, no? And so positivity goes a long way. One of the biggest shifts or reframes, as I've talked about in other episodes, that we can make is to focus on positive reinforcement rather than punishment. ADHD kids, or any neurodivergent kid really, but especially children with ADHD, they can experience correction far more than they experience praise, which can hurt their self-esteem and make them feel like they're always in trouble. When we focus on rewarding small wins, like remembering to put their shoes away when you ask them, or one episode we talked about putting their pink socks away in their room, not cleaning the entire room. When you ask them and they do it, it motivates them to keep trying and really praising them for when they do it, right? Even that little thing. Remember, it's just the little habits that add up, and compound interest of habits get us to a huge reward. And that's what we're looking for here, as those little atomic habits or compound interest habits that build up over time. So for example, let me just give you an example. I worked with a parent, Susan, who created a reward chart for her son. Every time he followed through on a task, like putting his dirty dishes in the sink, he earned a sticker. At the end of the week, he could trade his stickers for a special activity, like extra time at the park. Within a few weeks, he was consistently doing small chores because he loved the feeling of accomplishment. So my action tip for you for this, number one tip, start by setting a small goal, like listening the first time they ask. Track this with a simple visual system, like a sticker chart. Be specific with your praise. Instead of just saying, good job, try saying, I love how you put your toys away without being asked. Okay, the next guideline that is in our guide is number 2, address the whole child first, then discipline. So I really want you to treat them well before you punish them, because punishment doesn't really work for children with ADHD. Sometimes the defiant behavior we see in kids with ADHD isn't intentional. It's a result of the condition itself. ADHD affects the executive function, which if you don't know what that is, I should do a whole episode on what executive functions are, because working on those is 99% of what I do as a holistic coach. Working on executive functions is one of the major pillars to addressing ADHD and how to work with it. Sorry, that was a side note. So I was saying that ADHD affects executive functions, which includes skills like self-control and managing emotions. Before jumping into punishment, consider if their behavior might stem from the ADHD that they're having, right? Does it stem from that? So, for example, I recall working with a family where the parents felt frustrated when their son couldn't sit still during dinner. After understanding that his fidgeting was a sign of his ADHD, they introduced small sensory toys at the table, like chair bands or a little fidget. And oh, those chair bands are amazing. I think I talked about that in one of the earlier episodes, which helped him channel his energy without punishment. Their mealtime improved dramatically. He was able to talk to them and focus on eating and at least get through the majority of his meal. So I would like you to work with me or anyone else, an OT that you trust and respect, to create a plan that targets self-regulation skills. Techniques like mindfulness, deep breathing, and using a fidget tool can help. And that is the holistic part of the holistic coaching that I do. Working with many pillars to help them calm themselves so that you can have a peaceful dinner. Okay, that's 2. thinking of that holistic approach and the whole child before you discipline. All right, let's talk about using communication and preemptive planning to reduce conflict. Oh, this really saved me and my son. Communication is key, but the pre-planning really helped as well. So for our guide number 3, or guideline number 3, communicate calmly and clearly. Yes, I know that's hard as when we're in the heat of it, but I'm telling you that what I just said in the last tip, stop, breathe. Some of this stuff is really great for us parents. Mindfulness, breathe. I can't tell you how many times, and now all I have to say to my son is breathe, and he knows what to do. He knows what to do. So kids with ADHD, and of course, this goes for all of our neuroquirks, right? A lot of our neuroquirks, but we're talking about ADHD in this episode. They can struggle to process verbal instructions, especially when they're feeling overwhelmed, right? The prefrontal cortex is not developed yet. And so it's harder for them to process instructions, especially, when it is overloaded. So please be simple, clear, use clear communication. It will really work wonders. And when you feel upset, remember, first, breathe. And children also really mirror our tone and energy. Staying calm and using short sentences helps them absorb what you are saying. It also gives you a chance to take a break and a breath. So one mom, for example, shared that she had trouble getting her son to start his homework. Sound familiar? She tried rephrasing her instructions to, let's start with math together for 10 minutes. And it made a huge difference. He didn't feel as pressured and could handle the short time frame. Isn't that wonderful? Don't we want that? No battles over homework. It's not worth it. And again, the Pomodoro technique, I believe I talked about that. The working and then taking a break, and working, taking a break, and then a longer break after a couple rounds, depending on the ages. Use visual aids to reinforce instructions. Try a checklist for the morning routine, or hold a picture of a clean room when asking them to tidy up. Nonverbal cues are especially and incredibly helpful. So these visual aids are also helpful. The picture could be of their room when it looks nice and clean so that they know what it looks like, or even just segmenting it down. What does their desk look like? What should it look like? Remember, making it simple, 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 depending on their ages. And now a word from our sponsor. Are you a parent struggling with defiant behavior in a child with ADHD? It can be overwhelming, but there's help. Download our free guide, 10 Essential Strategies for Managing Defiant Kids with ADHD. Inside, you'll find proven techniques to reduce power struggles, build cooperation, and create a calmer home. Ready to make a real change? Get your own copy now and start transforming challenges into opportunities for growth. Download it today at nexus-mastery.com/guidelines. That's nexus-mastery.com/guidelines. The link is also in the show notes. Thank you. Let's get you back to your episode. All right, our next guideline was number 4, preparing for challenging situations. So that pre-planning. Many kids experience emotional meltdowns, kids who have ADHD or neuroquirks, due to overstimulation and frustration. Planning ahead helps avoid these situations. If you know certain environments or events can be overwhelming, discuss or even role play coping strategies with your child. And these can include like taking deep breaths, walking away, not eating the sugars, whatever the situation will be. You need to either role play or talk it out ahead of time. I worked with a parent who found that large family gatherings were overwhelming for her son. They created a code word he could use when he needed a break, and she'd take him for a short walk. By preparing him for the event and giving him a way to escape, they avoided the dreaded meltdown. Doesn't that sound lovely? So that's one idea, a code word or a tap or some kind of signal, and a little exercise, a little break. Another wonderful thing to suggest for your teachers. So establish a cool down spot at home, a quiet corner we've talked about before with few sensory items like their favorite stuffed animal, a stress ball, a fidget toy, some nice lighting. Teach them to go there when they're feeling stressed. And guideline number 5, maintain composure in tough moments. So keep your cool. Yeah, the way to say that is to keep your cool. Kids learn how to handle stress by watching us. When we respond with calm, even in the face of defiance, we're modeling emotional regulation. Ever heard that saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? So really look at yourself first. Really reflect on your own behavior first. I remember I would get triggered. I would be affected by my son's behavior. I'm going to admit it. I really did feel at my wit's end and crying and didn't know what to do. And I would get frustrated. And it would, of course, escalate my son's behavior. And then it was a vicious cycle. He would escalate me, and we would go around and around and around until one of us calmed down. And it was usually me. I had to walk away because I'm the adult. I had to model good behavior. But it was hard until I really started to get a control of myself. And I started practicing deep breathing. And during these moments, I noticed that my son also started calming down when I started breathing. And like I said earlier, all I have to say now is breathe. And we both breathe and get through it. And this really also works wonders for his anxiety and my anxiety. If I model good calm down techniques, his anxiety would calm down immediately. So we almost don't see it anymore now that he's a teenager. So I really want you to practice your own self-care, right? Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your child, right? So practice your own self-care. Make sure that you're being mindful of yourself and your heart rate and your breathing and how you're feeling. Make sure you exercise and get any help that you need to get, because you need a full bucket, a full emotional tank, so that when challenges arise, you can help your child and you can stay grounded and model patience, and you can model self-care, and you can model mindfulness, and you can model exercise, so that you both will be happier and have more peace at home. Okay, that's our first 5 guidelines. I think we'll do our next 5 in the following episode. I really want you just to have something to think about, and I really want you to do your fun activity. So let's do our activity. There's so many wonderful options. So for our guideline number 1, the emphasize positivity guideline, you could create a kindness jar where both you and your child can add a token, like a small bead or a pom-pom, every time you see the other person doing something kind or helpful. Wouldn't that be fun? So that really helps focus on kindness and positive actions. And both you and your child recognize and appreciate good behaviors, building self-esteem and positive habits. So there's one option you could do. You can do all of these if you wanted. And please don't forget to post these on #NeuroNexus so that I can see them and others can see them. For rule number 2, where you are addressing the whole child first and then discipline, you could do a calm down kit Put together a calm down kit with your child. Include stress relief tools like a squishy ball, bubbles, for deep breaths, a small notebook to draw in, a fun little lamp, right? What would be in your calm down kit? They can be used whenever your child needs to self-regulate before getting frustrated or defiant. And this is really good because having a calm down kit readily available gives kids a sense of control and a tool to help them manage their emotions, making it easier to respond constructively rather than with punishment. Number 3 was communicate calmly and clearly. So in this one, you could do an act it out game, right? As we talked about role playing. Role playing is amazing, where you and your child act out different scenarios that often lead to defiance or frustration. Use clear, calm phrases and communicate with each other during the act and take turns being the parent and the child. How fun is that? Especially with your teens. They will love to hear from you and hear their perspective. This works really well by practicing these scenarios with playfulness and empathy. Children and teens, I've done this with my teenagers in my school and with my coachees. They become more comfortable with communication and following directions without being criticized. And it's fun. It's family bonding time. For guide number 4, prepare for challenging situations. We did talk about the acting it out for this one, but also you could create a quiet corner challenge if you don't have one in your house from a previous episode. We talked about this. Design a quiet corner or a chill zone if your teen is too cool for a quiet corner. In your home, go ahead and design this with comfortable seating, sensory items like soft toys, fidgets, calming activities, right? The calm down kit could be in there, puzzles, whatever they like to do to calm them down. And this is really good because kids feel more comfortable in the space and builds a positive association with taking a break before frustration. So get them to go to that corner before. The last fun activity I wanted to leave you with was the keep your cool or maintaining composure in tough moments is the freeze and breathe method, right? Play a variation of freeze dance with a breathing twist. Play some music and dance together. When the music stops, instead of freezing in place, take 3 deep breaths together and freeze in a relaxed pose. This works really well because it teaches the value of pausing and breathing in a fun, memorable way. It also helps model the practice of self-regulation skills that your child can use in challenging situations. And also, if your child's older, you can do just guided breathing meditations or guided breathing activities if they're older and don't want to play games. So many ways to approach this. You know your child best. And definitely, if you work with a coach, they know how to work with your child as well after getting to know them and creating that relationship. So again, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Neuroquirky Nexus. Next time, we'll be going through the next the next 5 guides for helping your defiant child. And we're going to talk about maybe the origin of defiance. What does that mean? What does it mean to be defiant? So thank you so much. Again, post your activities in the hashtag NeuroNexus. And I want to see what you guys have been doing. As always, I encourage you to keep it quirky and remember your child's brain is extraordinary. It's better than ordinary. And please see that in your child. Reframe the frustrations to, wow, my child is extraordinary. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Quirky Nexus. We are so glad you took the time to join us today. I know time is precious, and we are so glad you're here. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. Please don't forget to post your activity using hashtag NeuroNexus. That's NeuroNexus. And of course, all links are in the show notes. And I just really hope you enjoyed it. So if you did, please like and subscribe and share this with a friend. I think this is really good for families that are new to being their child being diagnosed with ADHD. And I believe that the tips and tricks and resources I'll be sharing will be very helpful for all families, but especially new families. And finally, I am creating a workshop coming up to help families with ADHD finding and using a holistic, natural approach in support of a book chapter that I'm writing and articles and magazines that are coming out. But my workshop, I'm so excited about because I can work with you all one on one. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again. And remember, let's keep it quirky. See you next time.